Hello and welcome back to Off Track Podcast with me, Dave Neal, and to this exclusive interview with the Bennetts British Superbike Championship Series Director, Stuart Higgs. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and also, if you have a look in the description, click more, scroll down, you'll find the link to our Patreon page where you get a chance of early access to the shows and the chance to ask questions of our guests. You'll also be entered into the draw for our day out at Inch Perfect Trials on the 20th of March, with the brilliant AJN Steel Stock Kawasaki BSB team. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get on with it. This is what you're here for. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Stuart Higgs. Enjoy. Bennetts British Superbike Series Director, Stuart Higgs. Welcome to Off Track. It's great to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, Dave, and welcome to Donington Park in the depths of February.
We've got a few things to discuss today. There's some burning questions, I think, from social media and people in general. Before we get to those, let's talk about the championship as it stands at the moment. We're off the back of 2024, one of the best finishes to a series since 2011, pretty much. And in 2023, it was decent.
This is the year before.
It was the year before.
I want to be big here.
Tell me about 2024. It was one of the strongest for the championship and a great champion in Kyle Ryde.
Yeah, I mean, look, coming off the back of 2023, I think everyone would have probably settled for, a good championship the next year and been a bit surprised to go better than what we saw then. But I mean, 2023 obviously had a huge amount of emotion baked into it with the death of Paul. It really sort of rocked our world. But all credit to Jordan for putting that together, Jordan and Frank. But, it was a great season. I'm on record as saying I think the 2024 season, week in, week out, probably delivered the best pack racing that we'd seen in the BSB class. Frankly, in any of its kind of modern era, and we call the modern era from 96 onwards. I mean, any given weekend, we're getting these balmy races where I think it really started here actually at Donington in the May round. On that, I think it was the last race of the day. It was a real crazy sort of 4 or 5 bike dice, multiple lead changes. Then when we got to Thruxton, I mean, that was just off the scale. I mean, just breathtaking. And then, just constantly, again, week in, week out, different winners, different permutations. I think that pendulum effect of one week it was advantage Tommy, advantage Carl. When it kind of gets as simple as that, and you've got someone defending the championship and defending it on another bike, I mean, that was really special, the possibility for that to happen. And Kyle really getting a full season together where, those pundits were sort of, well, has he quite got that mental edge that you need when you get into that real depth of the final part of the season? And that's where Tommy might have just had the edge that, bit of a wily old fox. But then coming down to that weekend, I mean, the pressure was incredible. A wet race on the Saturday, which just added another level. But mathematically, it helped Kyle be in the position to where he needed to be in. And again, it swung one to the other. The first race was, that was the hors d'oeuvre. And boy, that 20-lap final race, I mean, I think we're up to something like over 40 million views on the social clips of those last 2 laps. It's been spoken about in every motorsport forum. I mean, Kyle and Tommy did a thing the other day with Tiffany Dell, who's a very established motorsport broadcaster. Chris Harris, the Top Gear presenter, on his podcast, which isn't as good as yours, obviously, said the best 2 laps of any racing anywhere, frankly, ever was that, and that's been, such a rewarding set of, remarks to hear from so many different places. I mean, it's the best ever out of the championship. And in a champion, we've got, Carl instantly turned into a champion, not just from his points accrual, but his reaction on the day and how he articulated himself. And he was here a few weeks ago at a Bennetts VIP event, and he's just a thoroughly nice guy. And telling the story about the sacrifices his family made. It's such a such a story and such a journey, and the fire is burning bright. And what a defence he's going to have for his title with Brad Ray coming back into it on equal machinery, and then all the other things that are going on. So, yeah, look, it was the best ever end we could have imagined. This whole business is all about momentum, and how you leave Brands Hatch. That springboards you into the close season, which obviously this year is a little bit longer than other seasons have been, and that's important. That's what we take out to potential commercial partners, is what the teams do the same. It's just that energy that you gotta have to keep going until we reconvene for the first official test and then the first race in May.
There's been a big change in Kyle. We've seen that over the last few months, and we did a chat show with him Friday and Saturday this weekend just gone. His eloquence, his passion, the way he holds himself, without doubt a worthy champion. And we had those 2 laps played to the audience, and everybody's engaged, everybody's cheering, everybody's enjoying it. How much, with 2023 and 2024, how much has that pushed the COVID years way behind us now?
Yeah, I mean, look, without any shadow of a doubt, I mean, the depths of the COVID period in, May 2020, it was literally head in the hands because you couldn't see a way out of it. I mean, I get quite emotional just thinking about it, because everything we ever worked for was just sliding away. And every milestone that you're headed towards, because you needed that focus to when you're going to perhaps restart and get going, it just didn't happen, and the longer it went, the more difficult it was. And from the circuit's point of view, having to run behind closed doors, that was shattering for us as a group. Keeping the thing running. I mean, we employ a lot of people through the group. Obviously, we used some of the furlough schemes and some of the government schemes that were out at the time, but trying to run this operation behind closed doors was not easy. And then once we got through it, we thought, God, maybe we never have to do that again. And then, of course, 2021 came along, and we were hung out to dry, frankly, by the government of the day. We're all for public health and everything like that. But, we were just being sold such a sack of shit, basically. It just seemed illogical. They were saying to us at the time, 4,000 people maximum on a 400 or 500 acre estate. And then you had the Euro final at Wembley. I think Wimbledon tennis was okay. The Formula One Grand Prix, all under the illusion of test events. I mean, it was just nonsense. But, that was a lot of pain. And, I think we're probably on the other side of it. Obviously, we've just, the current kind of economic situation isn't the best it could possibly be. I think that lady from accounts, I think they call her, is not perhaps the best qualified to do the job. But weren't they into politics?
You'll lose me.
But yeah, everything is about the racing. And you can't do anything about the racing. The racing provides the platform, and the platform is what we work off of. And having back-to-back years like what we've had has been the best we could possibly hope for. And, that's what drives us forward. And we hope for more of the same.
One thing I'd like to ask you about, back to 2023, and while we're here, and we're 100 yards from the Melbourne Loop.
Oh, God, yes.
When incidents like that happen, how does race direction work? Because I think a lot of people will be interested in, we spoke to Reg a couple of weeks ago,
yeah.
And he enjoyed his 11 years, but he said there was a lot to learn of how it all comes together.
Yeah.
Tell me about the race direction side of things, because it is a little bit sort of unknown more than...
Yeah, I mean, obviously when decisions happen, I'm obviously the first person everyone moans at, so it's my decision, blah, blah, blah. But it actually isn't in terms of the judicial side. The race direction is a body of people. I am one of 4. Generally, from a race direction point of view, I am more interested in the actual round and round bit. So it's the exec decisions in a race in terms of incident handling, safety car deployment, reaction to things like that. Judicially, I have a view, but it's not an exclusive view. Eddie Roberts is a former rider, well known to everybody in the paddock. He succeeded Roger Marshall. He's been seen it, done it. Got the injuries to prove it. He's a fantastic right-hand man for, giving that kind of like that rider's psyche, talks to the riders, has that that intuitive knowledge. And then two other guys called Jerry Bryce, who also does World Championship, was FIM World Championship steward, who's run some championships himself, the European Junior Cup, that was his baby. And another guy called Giles Ollie. And they're more on the analytical side. We actually have technology that's very similar to what's in football VAR. I mean, it's the same principle, video assisted review, I think, or something like that. And it's a review of every single camera on the circuit, and we can pull up images and play them back to back, side by side, superimpose different things, bring the CCTV cameras in. So it's pretty clever stuff, and that together with all the data. And then an old-fashioned interview, if it needs to come to that, for what happened there. That can be a more prolonged discussion afterwards. But we quite like the field of play decisions, as we like to call them, are, I think, way more understandable for the public, way more fair for the competitors sometimes in terms of it gets it done, and it's having a consistent judgment. I mean, that was probably one of the more difficult days. I mean, like the Alton Park O'Halloran Gate incidents.
We can refer to that one as well.
The year before, we don't really have too much. I mean, I do some stuff in MotoGP, and the activity of judicial matters there is off the scale. You can get probably more investigations in one free practice session than we will get in half a season. So, to put it in context, when something does happen, that's why I think there's a lot of hysteria, because it doesn't happen that often, and therefore, it's there's a penalty, and we don't do that often, and it's all unfair. And but I'm pretty comfortable with the decisions that are made. I mean, look, the referee is never going to be universally popular, but consistency is key.
I think there's ever a job in motorcycle racing that people don't want, it's yours.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion, actually. I don't want my job, but no one else wants to do it.
You are one from one, that's it, yeah. I mean, how have you developed the job over the years? Because you've made it your own. It's been yourself and your team that's developed the Bennetts British Superbike Championship into the force that it is. But still, nobody wants your job, and it's all consuming, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I put a 30-year shift in to this. I think this year is 30 years in terms of it's concurrent with the formation of MCRCB, which is the Motorcycle Circuit Racing Control Board. This was the vision back in 95 by my true mentor, a guy called Robert Fennell, who was Mr. Donington Park, an absolute great guy, lived and breathed motorbike racing, an absolute visionary promoter, and he had a dream for BSB to be what it is now. Hopefully, I've served him proud. But he backed me from the hill, and it was just developing systems and people and standards at all levels to take what was British Championship racing pre-95 was such a disparate affair. I mean, you didn't know who was the true British champion. Regulations and classes almost changed by the weekend. 95 brought the stability of the new organisation, and 96 the modern day British Superbike Championship was launched, and we always just set out one goal to be the goal to be the best we could possibly be, and we've still got some people from those first years that make up the team, and the reliance on each other and a consistent group of people that have such a passion for this, and I'm obviously employed to do my job, but there's a lot of people in the field that work at the events that are there through essentially volunteers, but they're all professional. I don't like using the word volunteer, and they're all professional regardless of how they are there, in what capacity. It's a professional mindset. And the marshals are the same. I mean, that's been our real edge. My biggest career achievement for everything was creating an organisation called Race Safe, which it too has its 30-year anniversary this season. And that was probably the turning point, having this, almost like a military standard of operation with the hierarchy throughout that organisation and the standards and the training that previous to that just didn't exist. And when we got together to form the dream. And again, it's really symbolic being here at Donington. The first sort of meeting of minds was in the old Redgate Lodge, which was just over the way there from where we are now. We planned for a couple of hundred people to turn up to this meeting to sign up, and we ended up having about 700 people. And it was a movement. And it was a movement of people that just desperately wanted to see their sport grow. And there's been some bumps in the road, and I can't say it's all been plain sailing, but I'm proud of the journey and where we've. I know where we started from, but I know where we are now. Obviously, it's very easy for people just perhaps joining, even from a fan mindset and seeing just having the reference of the last 5 years. But when you put a 30-year shift in, you know what you've been through. So, yeah,
it's highs and lows, isn't it? I mean, you have the highest highs with the great championships, but you also have to deal with the deepest, darkest side.
Yeah.
And that rests on race organisation as well. Again, Donington Park, for Chrissy Rouse most recently.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those incidents on a personal level? Because you're only human, the same as the rest of us. You have a job to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't look for any particular appreciation, if you like, but I'm here to support my team and, reassure team members, family members, give them the assurance that the best services and facilities are provided. I think as we've pioneered a lot of things, and I know the marshal standard and the medical standard at BSB is frankly the best in the world. I'm not. I will defend that to the hilt. And it kind of makes you get a bit of a full sense of security sometimes. And that's when you do go back to the earlier days. And then I intuitively remember as a probably a 10-year-old kid or around about that age, my dad was the chief marshal work for some of the club races in Brands Hatch and Steddith and places like that. I intuitively remember just seeing people clattering circuit furniture and things like catch fences, which were great for cars, but lethal for bikes, and just like, just questioning. And I wouldn't ever be told or accept, like, no, shut up, pain in the ass, what you know. And I remember going up through the ranks, and there was some old ACU guy, he's long dead now. And I was I think about Thruxton or something like that. And I was questioning why something was going on. And the reply this guy gave me, he looked me in the eye and went, young man, when you've seen as many fatalities in the Isle of Man as me, then I'll listen to you. I was like, I'm sorry, fuck off.
Why does that make it?
But that was the mindset. That was some kind of badge of honor.
Yeah.
And anyway, that just motivates me more to do what we do. So, but back to your original point, look, I've driven away from events and shed a tear. I am human, and you question yourself. You do have a burden of guilt. There's been some incidents, where judgment has been called into question, and you have to do some soul searching and test yourself. And the day I think that judgment is not correct and has isn't good for the championship and is just wrong, then I'll step away from it. But I know my responsibilities both from a legal standard, a moral standard, a professional standard, and that's the man. It's big stuff. I mean, I don't actually dwell on it too much because it takes you to a place you probably don't want to think about. It's a responsibility that I take seriously. I wouldn't want to impose it on anybody else, that's for sure. But yeah, it covers a lot, and it's only going to get probably more challenging as society changes as well.
Thank you, Stuart. I thought it was something quite important that it's not out there in a public domain, and it's interesting. Thank you for that. And we will put a link to the racesafe.org in the description below, so anybody who does want to join.
No, that's the original. Look, I mean, you don't want to pay TV subscription prices or circuit admission prices.
We're coming to that.
But we do have a cap on numbers before we get 100,000 people volunteering.
You'd not be far off. And not be far. Let's look forward to 2025. The season is round the corner. Testing's kind of creeping up on us. Well, not creeping up on us, but it's probably hurtling at a fair rate for you getting out to Navarra. What do you see for the 25 season? What changes are there from a championship perspective?
In the BSB class, regulations are, technical rules are absolutely sort of pretty much unchanged. If it's not broken, there's nothing to fix. We've evolved the tyre material a little bit as a new Pirelli material, but the principle of the single slick tyre option will remain. We tested at the final round last year an evolved compound, which seemed to be okay. So that's on that. I think as ever, the fascination will be the team and rider changes, of which there's been a few, some more recent than others.
We'll talk about that.
But look, every year you think you know what's going to happen and generally get surprised. But I think this is probably more fascinating than it's been for a while. Haslam back on Educat is interesting. Rory on Educat is interesting. Brad coming back on the Yamaha. Danny Kent finally winning a race at Brands last year, and whether he can carry that momentum this year. There's just going to be a whole cast of people. Daft things you just got to think about. Like Fraser Rogers was on a really good kind of ascendancy last year before he hurt himself. Can he come back? But at all levels, there's things to think about. And again, I think that's the magic of Bennetts BSB, is that just when you think you might know what might happen, something completely left field happens on a race by race basis. I'm just thinking now, I'm not mentioning Storm Stacey. Storm Stacey on a BMW. It is just multifaceted, and I think that's the edge that this championship has. I love the other major championships, MotoGP and World Superbike, but even in World Superbike, Top Rack were pretty dominant. In MotoGP, Marquez is finished top of the tree for testing. It seems that we're gonna that's the word you're looking for, and I don't think you can say that about our championship. So complete unknown feeling, and that's just the BSB class. Supersport is just gone flipping mental. There's more team and rider, new teams coming in, international teams, changes there, some more Ducatis in the field. Superstock is going to be strong. I guess still probably more Honda aligned than anything else. Our talent class continues to give us new talent coming there. Sport bike is a global success story now, being taken up by both the German and the Italian championships, and we're going to get the Chinese come into our championship, Chinese manufacturers, which is really good. Super Team had a solid first year, more to grow there. Our BMW class, there seems to be as many of them as ever. What's not to like?
How important is it to the championship and to you to be so aligned with the manufacturers, both in the BMW Cup, Super Teams, and with the manufacturers in the championship? There's always been a good relationship with manufacturers over these years, but it seems stronger than ever.
There has to be. Whether we like it or not, most of our series are production derived, and we need to be aligned with what's actually relevant. And obviously, that's probably the big challenge going forward, in terms of, we know with the emissions challenges and with general sort of like high capacity sports bike sales not being what they were, it's managing classes that are strong in retail and others that are more strong in brand and recreational and race performance. So it is a tough time to navigate. And there's going to be I'm convinced there's going to be some bigger changes coming down the pipe. When MotoGP goes to 850 in 27, for sure you can't keep a current World Superbike performance standard up there if MotoGP's been pulled back. So there's going to have to be some changes on that side. How that then affects us in terms of the 1000cc platform is treated is to be considered. We're talking to all the other national championships, the principal ones, Motor America. We talk to them pretty much weekly on stuff. But Supersport Next Gen is really taking off, and I think there's going to be a really interesting, the higher capacity bikes in that class. We've got R9 coming online for the first time. We don't get to see it officially this year in the UK from a Yamaha strategic decision to put everything in really into World Supersport. But I'm sure that they'll come soon, and then that's going to be fascinating. So everything is changing around. I mean, the biggest challenge with these new classes is balance of performance, because it's pretty difficult to try to explain, and you're having to sort of almost like regulate bikes on an individual basis. Whereas you go back to just even 5 years, 10 years, the Supersport class or the whatever class, it was generally capacity led. There might have been a difference between cylinders, what the capacity might be, but it was essentially there's the framework of what you can do to a bike. That's it. Whereas with this, it's more bespoke, is that the role of the technical director, which is Scott Smart, and it's replicated in World Championship and other national championships, is they will we have a reference model, whatever it may be, and then to artificially make the other models replicate that reference. And you have various tools to do that, particularly around the electronics, torque curves, gearing and throttle position and things like that. So I mean, it all seems a bit like witchcraft, but it's a new way of working. I mean, it's been happening in cars, particularly sort of sports car type, in world endurance cars and GT type car racing for a longer period. So they're quite used to it, but it will take a little while to seed in bikes.
The foundations are there, aren't they, with what you've done with the Honda CBR 600 versus a 900 plus cc. You've printed the car. It's the proof in the pudding.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, it is unrealistic to make them to that everything will be absolutely equal, which is a demand that we often hear. But, it is a level playing field, and there will always be then a slight variance with rider ability. I mean, when we, any class that Cooper races in, I mean, he's like about 4 stone ringing wet, isn't he? So that then skews the figures a little bit as well. But, everything is within range. But, last year we saw typically 3 manufacturers battling at the front of Supersport, which was the point. In sport bike, again, we had R7, Aprilia RS660 and the Triumph, all within an acceptable competitive parameter.
It's a successful competitive window.
That's the one.
That's the way we look at it. We've got some young stars coming through in 2025 as well. Joe Talbot at OMG Racing. We've got Scott Swan on the...
He's with IWR.
He's on IWR. I was going to say IFS for a second. The IWR Honda. The 2 great lads coming through, cut their teeth in the Superstock Championship. When you look at the history, the more recent history of the Bennetts British Superbike Championship, you look in kind of 5 years, it feels, is the window for success. Taz, Brad, now Kyle. How do you see their future progressing?
Yeah, look, it's not easy, and they are both in. I mean, they're fantastic team structures. I mean, look, Paul Curran and Adam put a fantastic team together, and his expectations will be realistic. I was nagging his old team, JR Performance, to try and come up with him maybe in the pathway class a year or so ago. Excuse me. But, for whatever reason, stayed. I think it's probably right to stay. There's no substitute, I think, for, getting more just racing experience under your belt in Superstock. It's as tough as it gets. For Scott Swan, I think him going into Ian Wallicott's team, and that's a fantastic team. I mean, riders that have got through that team. I mean, Tommy Bridewell, Peter Hickman's rode for them. Even dear old Michael Rutter had a stint there. But he is a proper privateer team is. I mean, it's just no bullshit. Great little engineering crew headed up by James Buckingham, who I think is one of the most talented team personnel in the paddock. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I mean, I rather threw him under the bus back in, I think it was one of the early years that we were involved. So 2012, I think it was, when it was our first proper the first technical rules period, when the supersonic BMW team came from Italy, and it was Tommy Bridewell and the famous Patrick Muff. I mean, it was going to be Anthony West. I just get, I start shaking, and God, I was dealing with all that then. I mean, it was like, if you think that team, all the what you're hearing about the whole kind of BMW in the current era, Now there was a team that just arrived in a bit of a mess, and we threw James Buckingham into it, and he was going to quit. And I said, no, you got to keep at it. You got to keep at it. And if I remember, Bridewell got into the showdown that year, but we don't go space. Great team. And Scott's one. I was privileged to go to the Irish award ceremony at the end of January in Belfast. And we've inaugurated this, the Keith Farmer Trophy. I really wanted to just join those links ever closer between Irish racing and ourselves, because it does make up such a part of our paddock in terms of teams, personnel, riders. It's a constant flow. And in some cases, I think we're up to third generation now. So, it's great. And Scott was an incredibly popular winner of that, and delighted that a member of Keith's family were there to witness it. And then also his father, Michael, won an award that night as well. And, so humbling and just super nice people. And, I think he's got some superstar quality. So I'm really optimistic that they're going to do well. I think, if their expectations remain realistic. And certainly in Scott's case, the Honda just seems to be it seems to be the biker choice at the moment for a private team to get good results. So good choice on that front. And then obviously the Yamaha is, we know the standard of that. And it's great. It's great to have that new blood come into the championship.
I'm looking forward to seeing how both the boys progress along with everybody. It's going to be an amazing season. I think there's so many, as you say, so many variations coming up. Another variation is no Navarra this year as an actual round, but we are going to Assen.
Yep.
Which is great to see it back on the calendar again.
No, and that almost happened by accident. I was over at the circuit for the Dutch Grand Prix in June last year, and some familiar faces sort of saw me from around the organisation, and they said, the BSB must come back, and one day. And the more I sort of found myself ferreting around the circuit offices, the media centre, and just all the sporting side of the estate, and even in the paddock, just people that recognise us. BSB's coming back. I thought, well, I haven't really thought about it. So, I had a coffee with the circuit managing director, a guy called Peter Oosterbaum, and he said, "Well, how's it going?" I said, "Yeah, no, good." And well, you think you will come back? I said, "Well, yeah, well, with conditions, all right." I said, "Well, what were the conditions?" And we had a little bit of a chat about stuff. And obviously it's the 100th anniversary of the Dutch TT this year, so they're in a bit of a celebratory mood, and the Dutch do celebrate quite well. So I said, whenever there's a year to come back, I said, well, we'll go back and we'll talk to our teams about it, and sort of assess the commercial side of it, because obviously post Brexit things have changed a bit. We had a continuity deal with Stena Line, so we've got to try and reconstitute a new partner with DFDS. So everything's a bit different for sure, but the appetite was to go, and it's a place where we know we can get a good crowd there. It's comparable with the World Superbike round there. It's delivered fabulous racing. So, if the championship has an appreciation, and it's something that it does work. Anyone who's been to an Assen round between 2012 and 2019, I would suggest didn't have a bad time. So, I think it was, and it universally popular once announced. So, we're really happy about that.
I find it a little bit like Navarra last year. The main detractors were the ones who didn't go.
Yeah.
And the same with us. And it's a British Superbike Championship. Why are we going abroad?
Yeah. For a championship to display confidence and to present itself in an international surrounding, it's not a bad thing. I kind of get a bit frustrated sometimes. There's almost a flip side that people almost want it to fail. And we'll talk about it in the TV later. It's genuinely reading people saying, well, the audience is going to do this, it's all going to fail and die, and it's going to be, come on. Anyone who's at those events, will feel the sense of pride in how the championship, this, and I know what we are to us other international people. Yesterday I was over in a big show in France, in Lyon, doing an event with Data Tag, and Peter Hickman was there doing some work as well. And this bike show in France, we were talking to France is, as a population, roughly the same as the UK, but in terms of bike sales, it's 3 times as the UK. This show, I tell you, it's in this expo centre in Lyon, and it makes the NEC bike show look like a car boot sale. They are predicted, it's a 4-day show. It was supposed to be trade day yesterday, and there must have been about 30,000 people there. They are predicting 70,000 people on Saturday alone. It runs from 9 in the morning to 11 at night. If you imagine the NEC show and times it probably by about 5, they had a MotoGP grid line up on one side, a historic Grand Prix grid on the other that had just about every bike you could imagine from every period. Racing leathers for French riders, probably going back 50 years.
Wow.
Like you can pull them off now. Christian Sarah, Raymond Roche, the late Patrick Pons, all just, if you're into it, it was just a total immersive experience. Off-road, trials, historic, classic, contemporary bikes, custom bikes, retail. It's incredible. But I don't know, I've lost the thread a little bit of this, but when we're talking about just BSB being on the international stage, is that even a country like France has a big natural interest in bikes. They have the best MotoGP attendance in Europe. All their spectator events. Their national Superbike Championship is, probably we'd say it was closer to the Bennetts Club Championship. That's not being disrespectful. It's been reality that it doesn't have that kind of international gravitas. We know we punch above our weight and we can turn up on a world championship level circuit and hold our own. And I think that's a good thing, which is why we're not shy in trying these things.
Looking forward to it. We always have great racing at Assen as well. Such a great circuit that lends itself to great motorcycle racing across all series.
Let's get to the meat and drink, Stuart. There are massive changes from this weekend or next weekend, whenever Eurosport changes over to TNT. There's been a huge backlash on social media. My take on it was, let's wait and see what the championship has to say first, because all that's happened so far, and this is not me placating you, this is my view, and I've been on social media and said it, all we know at the moment is Eurosport is moving, the Eurosport content is moving to TNT. Nothing else has been said about cycling, British Superbike, Worlds. There's the option of Quest, I'm sure. Talk us through it, Stuart.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, let's take the potted history of British Superbikes on TV. I've been there from the start, and we're talking, say, 30 years. And, this is a constantly moving landscape. Things are not what they were, and what you see today probably won't be what they will be in a 3 or 4 years' time. Everything is changing. People's consumption of media, live sport, movies, everything. It's not just sit in front of the square box in the corner and you've got a few channels and you sort of do a bit of channel surfing and you see something you like, you dwell upon it. It's changed. It's a consumption model based upon different things, be it, say, music, sport, and things like that. But I'll take you on a little ride. And again, Donington is such a symbolic place to have this discussion. The whole British Superbike story started around television. Mid-90s, so about 94, 95, bike racing was on a bit of a self-destruct campaign under sort of the ACU governing body of the day. Much different organisation now, but back in the day, hugely political. Someone involved in motocross could probably dictate how road racing was run. It was rubbish. But circuit owners led by Robert Fennell, guy I mentioned earlier, completely sick of it. As the circuits, they couldn't promote a product they didn't believe in and didn't know what it was going to be. So the circuits, together with the car racing governing body of the day, the RAC, got together to form MCRCB, so it was a new governing body, and ACU were invited to be part of it. What that did was allow this new group to be responsible for the sporting regulations and, critically, the commercial rights to everything going forward. And commercial rights principally means television rights, by another word. So at the time, the British Touring Car Championship was doing pretty well. Lots of manufacturers were involved. They had a very simple formula. You know, it was nothing was seen live at the track on TV. It was like you go to the track, watch the race, but a nice post-produced program, only 30 minutes long. Murray Walker commentating was put out the week after on Grandstand. So you always knew 10 touring car races, and the week after be on BBC Grandstand. Robert Fennell was the established promoter of the day. I mean, he knew his stuff, particularly with TV, and he was the guy behind. If you go back far enough, you're a bit younger than me, I think, so you probably might not remember. There's actually 55.
3 years.
Oh, there you go, more or less. He put together the World of Sport Superbike series. So it was like Saturdays on ITV. And so this guy knew television, but he knew that we had to put it as a TV. I created with him the sporting side in terms of the race formats and how to run the races, because that was where I first started in the race control side. And a pilot was shot in 1995 at the Easter MCICB's first ever event, which was the British Superbike Championship. But before it was what we call the real British Superbike Championship, because again, it was the last year of, well, it was a 3-round BBC series called the International Superbike Challenge or something like that. And then a season-long Superbike Championship. It was the year that James Whittam became poorly.
Indeed.
And I think Hizzy won the championship that year. But we kind of don't call that the modern era of
Like the Heat Super Cup.
Well, I think that might have been the year before. I mean, it was all
the incarnate.
It was all the mix. But anyway, so this pilot was shot at Donington of essentially the support races, but principally two superbike races. I think Carl Fogarty might have been doing the races on a private Ducati. I might be getting a bit mixed up, but I'm sure he might have. Anyway, he sold the idea into BBC Grandstand, and they agreed. So for '96, the relaunch of the British Superbike Championship was a 10-round championship, starting and finishing here at Donington, and a company called BHP, which was the same company that did the touring car coverage, would come, not a live broadcast, they'd have these sort of cameras dotted around the track, not linked together, but they would just film everything, and then they go back to their edit suite in London and produce a 30-minute programme. And I think Barry Nutley must have been the commentator. But anyway, that was the start. And so the TV was a 30-minute programme on Grandstand. I mean, Sky was just coming to fruition around that time as well. But, you know, they were good numbers. I mean, Grandstand on a Saturday afternoon, you'd be getting sort of like between 1 and 1.5 million people. So great headline number, but no one really kind of understood the numbers behind the numbers, which is who that audience was. I mean, I always remember Grandstand was just that thing in the background that was on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, it'd be horse racing, or it could be boxing, it could be a cycling thing, it could be athletics, and it's like Des Lynam or whatever will go. And now it's the latest round of British Superbikes. You know, so
they're filling the gap between Football Focus and Finals Tour.
And even, I mean, if you see these videos up on YouTube of a Grandstand BSB highlights race from '96, you'll see a football score come up down the bottom of it. But that's what television was. So at the same time, Sky was coming on. And then, you know, what Sky were very good at was taking sport that was only ever, slotted into a BBC slot, like on Grandstand, and really investing to presentation standards. So 95, if you remember, and 96, that period, we had Sky Sports basically being the home of World Superbike. So Sky Sports, pay TV channel, and that's simple. It was a pay TV channel, part of the Sky platform. So when we look back and everyone says, oh, you know, the crowds of the Brands Hatch Fogarty years, well, 99 was the peak year of that. You know, that whole World Superbike Fogarty movement was pretty much driven by Sky Sports, a pay TV channel, which in audience terms at that time would have been around 35, 40,000 people.
Okay.
That was the audience on Sky Sports 3 for something like a World Superbike race in the late 90s. And that generated noise and traction that put 100,000 people into a Brands Hatch race event. So that's just setting the scene of where things were going to go, that sports, premium sports TV channels were popping up. and basically making long form broadcasts. Whereas the BBC, it would always be if it was ever live on the BBC back in the day, it would be, you'd go straight to, we're throwing to Brands Hatch and the lights go green and away we go. Whereas this was proper sports presentation with Julian Ryder, Keith Ewing, and it was magic. I can hear Ewing now like, Fogarty, and it was, it was the biggest kick up the arse that bike racing in the UK needed. The 95 World Superbike Round at Brands set us on a trajectory. So back to the BSB TV story, we get to the end of sort of 99 and we start getting interest ourselves from Sky, who'd done a bit of highlights as well midweek. It was a bit clunky. You can still see them on YouTube now. It's maybe like an hour program. You can see an old sort of the 1998 sort of super sport series, and you'll see some old sort of things of Jim Moody and people like that having BL and Ian Simpson and great races. But 2000, Sky started taking an interest in BSB. We still had the grandstand thing going on, and in that year, Sky had lost World Superbikes because, if you remember, BBC had suddenly taken interest, and all of a sudden, World Superbikes was live on the BBC. So, we're ramping up. Conversely, MotoGP, we were still in the 500 GP period. That was lost. I mean, I think in year 2000, they were on Channel 5, and if you kind of knew where it was, I mean. The British Grand Prix of that era. So we're just, like ghost towns here. And there was a big question mark whether we'd have the race here. But year 2000, Sky suddenly took an interest, having lost World Superbikes in BSB. They shot, and 2000 was the magic year. It was the Hodgson Walker year. If you're talking about Ride and Bridewell, I mean, this was kind of that first big clash that everyone remembers. So Sky came along to Silverstone. It was on the Silverstone International Circuit. And remember, the tension that year had been ratcheting up. Hodgson and Walker had crashed at Alton Park in that infamous moment going into Lodge. But they came to Silverstone and they put the levels of presentation into this BSB round that they put into World Superbikes. We had something like 17 or 18 live track cameras, helicopter cameras, curb cameras, onboards. It was magic. And again, what was happening there was a bit of a pilot to see what they could do with this, because they knew that Superbikes had some traction. But for whatever reason, the deal didn't go through. I can't remember the reason why. But at the same time, Eurosport had started popping up. In that time, it was called British Eurosport. It had a slightly different name to it. And various weird digital channels were beginning to pop up. ITV had a channel called ITV Digital. They had some live races. So all of a sudden, this model was appearing of live sport on a pay TV platform. So essentially, BSB has been behind, live BSB racing has been behind a paywall since 2001. So nothing has changed in terms of the principles of what we see today. It's obviously, things have changed in other areas. So 2001 and 2, it was dancing around in terms of being live on a premium TV sports channel. The grandstand highlights still continued. In fact, the grandstand highlights continued all the way through to the end of 2005. That's how far that went. But then 2003, Sky came back and we had a real good period of stability, 3, 4 and 5. With Sky Sports Live for BSB, and it was a really good format. I think it was 1 o'clock until 4:30. It was 2 BSB races with top and tail of the programme. We had the Virgin Mobile R6 Cup, if you remember, and British Supersport in the fabulous period of the late and much missed Carl Harris, Craig Jones, Keith Ewing commentating. We had Neil Mackenzie as the expert, and the effervescent Jonathan Green running around. Strapping people on the grid. But I mean, some other sports people have come through that. I mean, Lee Mackenzie does all the Formula 1 stuff. Her first broadcast, I'm pretty sure, was a BSC.
I remember.
But I mean, in and around all that, we're moving with the times. We're seeing what's going on here. That premium sports channels are the way forward, and Sky was really the only player in town. We then had a bit of a change of direction because ITV started showing some interest, and it was a time we had Dorna as our promoter, but it was a kind of a subsidiary of Dorna UK. And ITV had seen the popularity of MotoGP on the BBC, because in this intervening period, the MotoGP class had appeared. We were now into the deep Rossi peak. The British Grand Prix here was up to record numbers, 70, 80,000 people. It was doing good numbers on the BBC. ITV were taking a bit of an interest. They had Formula One, I think, at the time as well, or they'd either lost Formula One to the BBC. I mean, it was all in there. Yeah, it was all flip-flopping. So as part of all those discussions, we got ITV on the hook about doing BSB. British touring cars were in the same mix of negotiations as well. And to this day, I don't know how we did it, but we managed to secure a 2-year deal for BSB to be on ITV1 for both 2006 and 2007. Although for 2007, because the numbers weren't great, because this audience dilution was taking place and the networks were saying, listen, we've gone beyond the period that we cannot lock out umpteen hours of main terrestrial broadcast time for sport. The advertisers don't like it.
Okay.
The sports channels have come online, principally Sky, that have diluted the audience. For us as broadcasters, live sports production is one of the most expensive things we do. It's a lot of people, a lot of material, all in remote places. A rig for a TV production for a BSB race starts on the Tuesday of race week and ends on the Tuesday after race week. So, none of this stuff happens, but it's not plug and play. It's literally starting from scratch every time the rig turns up. So with those audience numbers going down, we knew that the future probably wouldn't be with ITV. In fact, we were offered a deal to stay on an ITV4 type platform, but pay so heavily for it that it made no economic sense. And it's not the model we want to go to. We don't look to the BSB teams to fund the TV production, unlike the British Touring Car Championship, where I can assume from their model is much different from us in terms of a team in the British Touring Car Championship has to pay something like a £10,000 entry fee, and within that, the driver registration fee is £27,000 per driver to drive in the British Touring Car Championship. Now, I'm pretty sure if I phoned Alan Gardner and said, you're running a 3-rider team, Alan, that's great. So I'll have 10,000 quid off you to be an official team. I'll phone Yamaha to be an official manufacturer. They can pay us another 10 grand themselves. Oh, and that's 3 riders at 27,000 each. So, we're up to about sort of 80-something thousand, Alan. Times that then by the other 24, 23 riders on the grid at £27,000 each. I've just given myself a pot of £500,000, and I'm probably going to take that to a broadcaster to help in the big production pot. We don't do that. It was not why we want to do this. But anyway, very long answer to a question. I think I'm going to break my previous record. But anyway,
9 minutes and 30, I think it was.
But the serious point here is it's about seeing where the market is going. And the principal thing was that the major networks were saying, listen, unless you're football or boxing in case of ITV, they were just not interested in sport on a Sunday afternoon on the main networks. So we took a decision in 2008, which coincided with MSV taking the rights to the championship, to look elsewhere. And like in these times, you always keep relationships going with the broadcasters. And at that time, there was Sky, there was Eurosport. And now you're dealing with even less people because all the media houses have converged to create super media houses. But anyway, Eurosport had got some rights back and they dumped the British Eurosport thing, and they were really keen to do something. And we saw value at that point, seeing where this was going, to create a destination for bikes. And they had MotoGP, as you remember, the Julian Ryder and Toby Moore commentating. World Superbike was on there as well. So it was a natural place to be. But if you remember, Eurosport, I can still be best described as a bit primitive in that period. And Eurosport too, if you remember, certainly before we went into partnership with them, Eurosport 2 would always permanently have the ticker running along the bottom telling you who'd won the Nordic Bobsleigh Championship or something like that. And, continuity wasn't always that good. I mean,
European channel, I'm aware.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you'd motorsport or something like that, and there'd be a snooker thing or a ski jumper or something like that. So it was a pretty tough negotiation. And I think we were one of the big influencing partners in saying, look, we're all going to come to you, but We want a home for bikes, home for BSB. We want a lot of content. We want hours and hours and hours. We want a chunk of hours. We want repeats. And they agreed, and it served us very well. I think that the audience liked it, but we also didn't want to give up a free-to-air base. So for 2008, I previously done some car race series management back in the early 2000s with Formula 3 and GT, and I had those series on Channel 4. So I negotiated to put BSB back on Channel 4 for 2008. So we had again, live sport on a pay TV channel with a free-to-air highlights offering. And that's what we did. 2009, like I say, again, it feels like me, but this is my life, Dave. This is what I do. 2009, ITV came back to us and we went back on ITV4 with our highlight show. And that ran for a while. They would simply take the Eurosport pictures and do a top and tail on it with James Hayden. And, that's where we really are today. And we constantly renewed with Eurosport because we found them a good partner to deal with. And they've got more and more polished as we went through. They obviously were then in competition with BT Sport in the mid-20-teens when BT Sport acquired MotoGP. And, there was a lot of people obviously quite upset that, they loved the whole Toby Moody, Julian Ryder and dear old Neil Spaulding going on about widgets. But that allowed us to have more broadcast capacity on Eurosport, and we then jumped to having a lot more Saturday racing on it. So that served us as well. Then things started to happen and that started changing the dynamics. Discovery then acquired Eurosport. That was the first big, most recent thing. That turned Eurosport from being this kind of home for quite a lot of things that wouldn't otherwise get coverage to being a lot more polished. Discovery then, all of a sudden, they became the principal European rights holder for the Olympics. And then, acquiring these rights and then subbing them out to other broadcasters like the BBC. So that's a big flip round.
Big turnaround.
The major tennis tournaments, they were all in the house, all the big cycling and everything like that. So Discovery definitely, they saw their moment. But what they also did is Discovery, by doing that, brought their free-to-air channels into the mix. So Quest, people go, oh, what's... Well, Quest is no different to ITV4. So when people say about touring cars against BSB, well, Quest is simply the same. We get all the audience data every morning, and they're in competition with each other. So, we did have a slight overlap where we had our highlights on both Quest and ITV. So we're coming up now into 2020, which was the crunch. We started to attract some interest from BT Sport, which was nice. But just as we come into COVID, so we suddenly find ourselves in COVID with everyone pulling the brakes up saying, not sure what's going to go on here. And we're like, shit, well, our TV deal ends at the end of 2020. What's available? Because of our long-standing relationship with Eurosport since 2008, we are able... I think we were the last deal done before the hammer came down, and Eurosport put a statement out saying, we're doing no new rights acquisitions and we're doing no renewals because, we're talking, I think that must have been an Olympic year. I think it must have been Tokyo 2020.
That's right, yeah.
They didn't know whether their biggest sports tournament was even going to take place. So I remember signing the TV contract on the 8th of June, 2020. I was sitting alone in my office. I didn't have my voice coach there like Keir Starmer. There was no beer involved and there wasn't any cake or anything like that. It was just a very lonely day at the office. And I just remember the date. It's the date when my mum passed away many years ago. I just remember that date, signing a TV contract, the longest TV contract we've ever had, which takes us through to the end of 2028. And I thought, you know what? In all this sort of doom and gloom, and there'd been some days and weeks prior to that where I thought, shit, it's all over. I thought, the teams are going to crumble, the circuit, we have to sell the circuits will be, you just can't keep going, and whatever comes out post-COVID will just be this kind of sort of shell of what it was, and we've got to start again. So to be able to sign an 8-year deal at that time, I thought that's the stability that we need. And it also built into it, because we took the advantage to negotiate some good terms that some live races now on Quest, which is important to give live free-to-air visibility. Formula One only has one live race on free-to-air television in the UK. The British Grand Prix is live on Channel 4, and that's the only live race. We have at least 4 races, or 4 events on live free-to-air. So, that's a good thing. I'm sick to death of hearing now, but you can't do this and you can't do that. In the current landscape of where the reality is of where TV sports broadcasting sits in the UK, to have 4 events on live free-to-air is good. All our highlights are on free-to-air. And obviously the rest of the content is, again, on the paywall, as it always was. Obviously, as time has gone on, it's I think only a year or so after that, then came the big thing, which no one particularly foresaw. The big ramp up is the war between Sky and BT. You have Sky, which was essentially and is essentially a sports rights brand. That's what it was set up to be. It's a television brand of which sport is a big component. Now, Sky Sports, Sky Movies, Sky Lifestyle, whatever it is. But sport is a massive part of it. And we see Sky Sport Italia, Sky Sport Germany. It's massive. They've used their television position to increase and diversify into home services like broadband and mobile. Now that, I think you can say, is like putting a tank on the lawn of BT, who probably sit there going, well, hang on a minute. We are the national infrastructure company. We are mobile and we are broadband and everything like that.
And BT is British Telecom.
And
that's what it's about.
What the hell do they know about, communications and networking and things like that? So the BT strategy to respond was to invent BT Sport, to do it the other way, because Sky had done a pretty effective job of having a massive accumulation of people using their broadband and mobile services. So BT thought, well, we'll pay you at your own game. We'll just go and acquire a load of sports rights. And they went on a huge spending spree of the Premiership, Champions League, obviously MotoGP, all sorts of things. I mean, everything. It was a massive hoover up of sports rights to create the war. Going, right, okay, well, we know we'll get the people back again by taking the sports they love, and we'll have them over here.
Well, they took Champions League and Premiership, the Champions League specifically, away from Sky Sports.
So that's and that is the market. Now, that's not something that the dear Bennetts British Superbike Championship could influence, But what we do have to take a position on is, do we want to be isolated and on our own? We could do a streaming thing like the TT have done, but that's probably all we would ever end up with. And,
what's the expense on that, though?
It's true. And it wouldn't be much cheaper than is being touted at the higher end of the Discovery price going forward. But we are just basically running a service for people that know about us to actually then market that out to people that to grow it will be hugely difficult. And of course, a broadcaster by that point will say, well, the value is the live rights. So once you've you've chopped them up, the TT is an uncomparable model, because you can't show the TT live on TV because of the capacity that needs. But their model is great, that they've flipped it, that the live rights are on their platform, but the highlights are on a free-to-air. It's a very clever model, but it's a once-a-year event. Of course, it'll be very difficult for us to do that. Not saying it's not something we won't do in the future, but I think so many other things are going to change in the future. There's no point trying to do something now that will be conflicting with something you might do. But so we're in this position now where Warner Brothers have come along and scooped up the entire lot. So you've now got Warner Brothers / Discovery all together using their TNT Sports brand, but underneath it is EE Broadband, EE Mobile, and it's basically two people staring at each other with a pack of sports rights and a pack of home services. And that's really where I would now go back to the negativity towards the comments towards us. I think it is critical that the championship is on a serious and credible and well-promoted, trusted media sports brand. And there are two. It's Sky or it's TNT. That's reality. Now, obviously, people that have been used to paying a certain price point are saying, well, yeah, but you've sold out. We haven't sold out. Basically, where we were has been rolled into something else and it's not going to exist. That's not something that we can control. But as a consumer, you do have power, because it is, to quote Donald Trump, the art of the deal, is that if you are on perhaps a Sky Mobile or a Sky Broadband, is that they want your business. And it's no more difficult than going online the same way people, I'm sure, do with their energy prices and providers, is that E-Mobile, for example, I know that because someone told me today, are offering a crack. I'm not a salesman for any of these people, but I am now getting credible, get examples back of, if you're switching broadband or you're an E-broadband customer, you get TNT for like 20 quid. If you're a mobile customer, you might even get it baked into a mobile renewal for nothing. If you're a Virgin customer, they might put you on it for nothing as well. If you're a Discovery Plus existing subscriber, you click cancel because you don't want to pay 30 quid a month. They will immediately flash you back $15.99 for 7 months, which covers the year. There's deals to be done. And I think people do need to perhaps just take a step back, absorb it. Yes, we're on a pay TV platform. We've always been on a pay TV platform. Yes, it's more, but the offering is more. If you add up all live BSB races, all live MotoGP races, all live World Superbike races, now we're into over 100 plus live races on the TNT linear platform. That's what linear is, proper telly. That's the offering. It's all going to be on there. We are retaining our free-to-air races on Quest. We're looking roughly, over a third of the season free-to-air on Quest, live races.
That was one of my questions.
Yes.
Will there be any more on Quest, or is it?
It'll be the same as we've had before, because that's what we're contracted to deliver.
Yep.
We are trying to push for some more, because I see an opportunity to try to dovetail with live MotoGP sprint races that are all live on Quest. Now, there's not many clashes with BSB and MotoGP next year. There's only 2 European clashes. Okay. Only 2. So everyone's, but what happens when there's well, there are no clashes. Guess what? We do talk about these things. We do structure things. We have massive planning meetings. We are... I had an email yesterday about, September schedules for where things will be. And there's some other things that are being proposed, which I think would be really good around the TV presentation. But, I want people to be reassured. All the highlights are still on Quest. That's free to air. At least a third of the season live on free to air. Everything else on TNT. And there are ways through the mechanisms described that it's not the hit that people are fearful of. But beyond that, this is all about now how people consume their media. YouTube is free. Now, I would just ask anybody, if you haven't seen it, just watch The Thrill of the Race. It's an independent production that's put out by ourselves, going under the skin, these nice sort of 30-minute edits. They're available a week or so after the race. They go under the skin. We show our onboard content straight after the race as well. There is media to be consumed, and the new audience that we need to keep the championship fresh and relevant is not consuming their media by a TV in the corner of the room. It's on mobile, it's on a laptop, it's on an iPad, and it's surge demand. Something's in the head. It's teasing them with a TikTok video or an Instagram post that will take them into that. MCN did an article, the occasional viewer might not see this on the TV. That reflects such an archaic point of view. And I will give MCN a little call about that, because it's not representative. But I also use the MCN thing. If I buy MCN, I pick the thing up, turn it around, look at the last 4 sports pages, and I'll put it back on the shelf sorry, MCN, but it's the same thing. So, when it's like, yes, but I don't want cycling golf, and well, I'm sure you probably don't, but you can have a gym membership and only use 3 bits of apparatus. I think we have to understand the world we live in. No one's sold out to anybody. The costs of TV production are this big 7-figure sum. To have BSB sitting on a platform like TNT, I want to see, I don't particularly like football that much. I watch games and that, but there's no point being snobbery towards it. If we have a pitch-side Premier League game or a major, say in May or something like that, or September when we dovetail seasons, someone is pitch-side at Old Trafford, and the anchor for a Premiership programme says, and by the way, on TNT for whatever the other channel is, it's live from Donington Park. That's a good thing, and I don't think we should shy away from just having our sport being spoken about and being connected to other sports that are bigger than ours. We've got to be aspirational. We've got a new audience to come in. There are people that they don't know what MotoGP is, let alone BSB, but let's put it out there. I don't want anyone to feel disenfranchised. I know this is a difficult time for a lot of people, and some people will be priced out of it. That is a bit out of their hands. There's no easy solution for that. But, it is unrealistic to think that we can just do a streaming thing just for BSB and dilute the value of our position on a big sports broadcast platform just for that. But there is other content out there. There are deals to be done. And additionally, our international visibility is critical as well. That's why we get the attention we get. We're live in Australia on Fox. We've got USA output on various broadcasters, New Zealand, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East. All those regions are seeing Bennetts British Superbikes, and I'm proud of that.
Is it fair to say that it also strengthens a position in terms of sponsorship for teams as well? Because there's been questions of that as well. It's going to affect sponsorship. It's going to, I think sponsorship and everything is difficult already. Even kind of,
it goes back down to audience numbers in terms of volume. They have a value. The actual what that audience is made up in terms of the demographic of that audience is more important. And I go back to the adage about, when we're perhaps on terrestrial television, we might have got in the last recent period. And it's also been recent years when MotoGP has jumped onto, for instance, ITV1 last year. The audience wasn't that much bigger than behind a paywall. So the value to a program advertiser and a sponsor is a relevant audience that is engaged and is, just of the quality that makes the numbers work from an advertiser's perspective. And there is so much data behind this that 100,000 relevant and engaged people of the right demographic is of more value than an audience of 500,000 if at least half of that just don't fit the target. And it goes back to, say, ITV back in 2007 say, hey, we don't need live sport. We'd rather put a rerun of Poirot on. So first of all, I don't think there'll be much, if any, audience drop. I think we have as much reason to be optimistic to take advantage of the 12 million audience reach of TNT Sport, because that's what it offers. Cross-promotion with other major sports. Premiership Rugby, their audience went up by something like 80% by going onto the TNT platform. That's a figure that's out there and on the record. So, I'm not going to say we're going to get 80% uplift. I'd be foolish to say that, but I'm optimistic to think we'll get new eyeballs. I think that's really important. There is actually also, and the folks at Silverstone tell me this, not a huge connection between the MotoGP ticket base and the previous BSB ticket base. So there are people, and we've done some fan surveys on this as well, that are only interested in MotoGP and not any other form of bike racing.
That's right.
And I think,
100%.
I've got onto flights going to MotoGP races, and people are all wearing their Marquez gear and still some Rossi gear, obviously. And I talked about BSB, and they sort of half heard of it. I said, will you ever go to any races? Well, I can't afford that. I went, well, how much do you think it is? Well, going to MotoGP cost me like 100 quid to get in the gate. I said, a BSB race, you're looking at about 40 quid.
In advance for the weekend.
And I was like, yeah, this thing exists, and there's more racing, you're closer to the action. And, so there's a sales job to be done on what, we see the BT Sport audiences for MotoGP, and they're in the 250, 300,000s. There's no reason, though, if you've got a kind of a bike racing kind of sympathy and you like it, then that's that's got to be an easy target to start with. So, but it's changing. And I think what we see now ain't necessarily what it's going to be in a few years down the line. We're now seeing Netflix openly talking about being the broadcaster of Formula One in the USA. We see Amazon Prime taking live sports. They've got a big chunk of Premiership. And even if you go onto your Amazon Prime at any time, I just noticed it yesterday, you get teasers to basically do a kind of a purchase, almost like a pay-per-view to jump onto a TNT Sport or a Sky or something like that. So the consumption model of either on-demand there and then or subscription, and I'm sure the models will be changing. I'm sure that, it's all data-driven. Could it be that downstream someone looks at a TNT motorsport model? I don't know. But certainly I think that wouldn't be on a linear TV platform, but it might be on a mobile thing. I mean, I'm not setting any expectations here, but that might be something. But it will be driven by demand. And I think everyone's got to understand that's the way the world is going.
It's a difficult world on so many levels, from sponsorship, finance, everything. It's not an easy world at the moment. Will we see, keep an eye on the time, I know you've got to be elsewhere shortly. Will we see similar coverage, support classes? Yeah. It's almost a one-for-one transfer.
We are contracted for a minimum number of hours of broadcasting with our support classes therein, so that's the expectation.
Excellent. Stuart, we had some Patreon questions. I know we've run out of time a little bit.
Okay. Well, you can talk for hours.
We said 12:15.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Are you sure?
It was 12:15 to remind me I need to go in half an hour. So.
Excellent. We got something. Thank you, Charlotte. Hopefully that explains to the listeners and the viewers, because there has been a massive hysteria.
I've always said, and I monitor the socials. I mean, if someone asks, and our email's out there, my email's out there. If someone asks a reasonable question, I'll give them the answer. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But if someone, people aren't sometimes the nicest in the way they deliver their questions, so they don't get a response. It's as simple as that. But I will answer anybody on any level. So
social media at its finest. Let's have a look. We have the Patreon questions. Here we are. Oh, okay. I'll find patrons. The link's in the description below. For those of you who may want to join our Patreon scheme, every little helps on that front to help keep us going and to do what we do. You're quite popular on the questions from Stuart.
There's none from HMRC, is there? So I don't think you can answer them, but
I will skip that one. Let's have what have we got? One from Tom. This is a bit more of a suggestion.
Tom Bridewell, is it?
It's not Tom Bridewell.
Tom from Devices.
Tom from Devices. So can you make the pace car go a little bit quick? How about a once-a-year endurance event? Something like an 8 hours of Brands Hatch placed around the summer solstice. A once-yearly event open to teams riding in BSB spec bikes with BSB teams. We're giving the priority entrance, then open for others for the remaining slots. And maybe teams from WEC coming to join in and make a festival. Which this dovetails in. Keith Ewan drops, as we drop this on Monday, Keith drops on Wednesday. Okay. Keith made a point of why didn't we do night races at Silverstone on a Wednesday? Something like that as an extra way of getting people through the gate, but maybe something like a little bit of a BSB festival on a non-racing weekend.
No, evening races, I did float the idea with the folks up at Knock Hill, because it doesn't get dark until about 1 a.m. when we go up there. But again, it goes back to broadcast. We've got a broadcast and broadcast lots of sports broadcasting of an evening. You're just in other people's territories, so it kind of rules out. But EWC, I mean, look, I'm not a massive endurance fan, but I mean, I've been fortunate enough to go to the Suzuka 8 hours once, and it's one of the best events I've ever been to in my career. I mean, the 100,000 people, the whole theatre around it, and I did have a few what if moments, but unfortunately, it just doesn't translate to being popular over here. I mean, we have had the EWC over in the UK. I mean, I ran it at Brands Hatch back in 2001. That was the last 6 hour race we had, and the number of spectators I think came in one car. Then the format changed the year after, and it went down to even a 200-kilometre race. It was at Silverstone.
Yeah.
And I think 2 cars came to watch that. It's all great in theory, but someone's got to pay for it. You know, the EWC organisers are also part of Warner Brothers Discovery. I talk to them from time to time. If there was a model that could make it work, we'd never say we wouldn't discuss it. But
We need a fan appetite for it as well, don't we?
it's you know, and as for a standalone race, you know, there's no sort of budget slack for people to race for a non-championship thing. But look, never say never. But it's not something in the immediate plans.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom. From Bob Barton, looking forward to this one. Does Stuart have a favourite UK circuit? If so, what is it and why?
Brands Hatch, because it only takes me about an hour to get home. And no, not at all. And I'm not going to say that because I'll get hated. Look, there are circuits that, I don't think I like one over the other. I love Brands. That's where I grew up, a cut my teeth. You know, all my family memories. My dad's ashes are scattered there, and I've sort of got wishes that I'm sort of left there as well. Everyone knows that. My executors know that. A bit of a morbid topic. But I love here at Donington again. That's it's provided so much in terms of the history of the sport, the history of where this championship has and how it's developed. Craner curves on at 7 o'clock in the morning with the sun just coming out. That makes the hairs stand up on the back of your neck. Alton has this kind of, it's just the grandeur, the historic lodge. I go around, lucky enough to see some of the circuits around the world, and look, some of they're magic, Sepang or Biriam or something like that. But you know what? The heart and soul of what we've got over here. And when visiting people come, they actually say, you appreciate what you got, because be careful what you wish for sometimes, and if it goes, you can't recreate the history. I will answer the question. You know what? If someone just said, if you had a free hand, and you were sort of set for life, what would you do if someone said give you a track? I'd probably take Thruxton. And I could see myself at Thruxton sitting on my mower, cutting the grass. I would dismantle. Day one, I'd knock the bloody garages down and personally rebuild them.
But that's the only contentious issue with Thruxton, isn't it? Is the garage.
There's something about Thruxton. It's a track that's been around since '68, and the configuration of something that's magic in itself. But something about that place, and it's a beautiful part of the world down in Hampshire, and. I'm going to answer that and say Thruxton here. Yeah?
Excellent. Not one of the people will be relieved it's not one of your circuits.
Yes, there you go. Exactly.
I think it's a great thing, and I find that it's exactly what you say. Of coming to BSB for however many years, ridiculous amount of years, and being in the circuit early, working at OMG in 21 and 22. Here in September,
I had no idea. So
attending BSB, I just appeared, Stuart. You know that. I just appeared for OMG for a couple of seasons. But walking in here, the sun comes up away over from the Melbourne Loop.
Yeah.
But then when you're at Alton Park, and we had this on the show a couple of weeks ago when Jen and I did an episode, and people asked my favourite memories. I love September Alton Park because you get the sunsets and the colours.
The colours, yeah. Brands is the same. The final round, you get that. The final round again, just all the colours just pop. That's fabulous.
Excellent. So it's not just me that feels that. And his final question: if you could bring back one class from previous seasons, what would it be?
In BSB or anything?
BSB for you, yeah.
From 250 GP. No question.
Bob said the R6 Cup.
Yeah, it was a good cab.
But they're 250.
The classic 250 era with, Bosworth, Nigel Bosworth and Newton and Alan Carter. They were magical. They're magical.
Good. That's why we have them on the show, because the stories are just great from there. Bob, thank you very much. Rosalind Fisher, she'd like to know, apart from the fantastic racing and the fans, what keeps you motivated to keep doing what you do, as it can't be the easiest of job at times?
The fact I got divorced a few years ago and I can't afford not to.
Customers offer.
Great question. I don't treat it like a job. I think that's the thing. I've a bumpy ride personally and professionally, as some's more documented than others. Had a bit of a health scare last year, but the plate's spinning. I mean, my average week is, I've been to Donington twice this week. I live in London. I was in Lyon yesterday, in France. I've got family duties this weekend. My kids are down in the West Country. I've got a track inspection. I was walking around Donington this week at 7:45 in the morning doing a track inspection with my colleagues and John Reynolds, who was helping us on some stuff. I was walking around Brands Hatch at 8 o'clock on Monday morning with Danny Buchan. I live for it. I've made some sacrifices for this job personally by being away from home a bit too much and paying a price that, I miss my kids' childhood. I mean, teenage kids now, but I miss such a chunk, and I look at myself in the mirror sometime and go, was that I had such a relationship with my dad because my dad was massively into racing that I always wanted to have the same relationship with my kids, and of course, it just hasn't manifested, and so once you can't do anything about it, I think that's made me probably even more committed to go, well, I might have failed on one front, but I don't want to fail on this front either. So, no, I don't know. I've got so much energy for the job. I mean, when they finally sort of like dragged me away and probably chopped me in half, I mean, it would unfortunately and quite sadly have BSB written through the middle of it. So,
every organisation needs leadership, doesn't it? And it's something, as you say, it comes at a price. Thank you, Stuart. And thank you, Rosalind, for that one. I'll pick one of Simon Breeze's questions. He's put a handful in, but I know we're mindful of time.
Keep going. You got 14 minutes.
How does Stuart foresee the difference in performance, lap times wise, is sufficient between Superbike and National Superstock classes moving forward?
Well, we're in a bit of a holding position, and Superstock will revert back to a cut tyre. For this year, which might add a little bit on there. I mean, it's going to be close, but we've got to keep Superbike as the principal class. And it's I don't think we're serving any useful purpose with it being any closer. And Superstock still reflects the incredible, essentially, I'm going to say showroom standard because they're not, but the difference is getting smaller because what you get on a stock bike now is so. I mean, you compare a stock bike now to a Thoroughbred Grand Prix bike from recent years. It's bonkers in many ways. So yeah, we've just got to try and keep a gap there, and protect the prestige of Superbike.
Thank you very much. Also from Simon, how does someone become part of the race control team, as we spoke about earlier, and what skill sets are looked for? Is it personal recommendation, or is it an interview process, or a bit of both?
Well, the race control team is very, very, very small. I mean, Claire, my assistant, has been doing the job since 2008. She's internationally accredited as well. So if I drop down dead, she has the necessary FIM super license to be the clerk of the course for the British Grand Prix. And others in there they've cut their teeth a lot by club racing. I mean, learning the game. I mean, it's not something you can just be put into if you've come off something completely alien. I mean, I learned my skills from club racing. I mean, until you've got a 30 race program at Snetterton and it's about up us 4 and you've still got about 16 races to go, and you've got it around your neck and you've got to kind of power your way through it. But I mean, for me, I mean, that, again, that's a massively great reflective part of my career was club racing. I mean, when I did a lot of stuff for the New Era Club, as it was, a guy called Jim Parker, who was a bit of a political and a bit of a figurehead for British racing, running a lot of his stuff. And it's fabulous. That was just you're committed. And most of the marshals, I mean, some of them are still, a lot of them are still part of the group now. So that's, and you never realised then where this was going to go. But, it was really enjoyable. I mean, club racing, I mean, the people that I'm still mates with a lot of the riders that were racing back then, and their sons are now racing at British Championship level. So I mean, that's the best thing I can do. So I would say anyone looking to, if they ever want to get into like the kind of the supervisory side of racing in terms of that, cut your teeth at club racing, and no one will turn you away because the sport depends upon the volunteer officials and marshals, and a good, safe club racing environment is crucial for the sport.
80% of this sport's run on passion,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. Chris Turner, cracking guest. Do you feel that the GP2 class hasn't really taken off like you thought it would?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to have lots of things of disappointing you, I mean, I love prototype bike racing as much as there's a role for both, clearly. And I think it's just a bit sad that the highest capacity prototype bikes are just the Talent Cup. I thought we were onto something, but I think we were sold a bit of a dummy at the time, sort of 2018, 19, when the industry at large and everyone was saying, well, the 600 class or super sport class is dead. So we thought, right, well, we're not going to wait for it to die. We'll go and create something. I had this, I don't think unreasonable theory that Moto2 Grand Prix hardware would be shuffling down as people refreshed in Spain and World Championship, and we could pick up, there'd be nothing wrong in having a 3 or 4 year old Calyx or a whatever chassis. I was never that sold on the single engine. I quite like the idea, and that's what we had. I mean, some of the things that appeared were actually really good. And then when Harris came in for a bit, I thought, good, I want that kind of, that chassis industry to be revived. I mean, not sort of like men in white coats in their garden sheds.
But promoting ingenuity.
But, but from a bike point of view as well, is like the chassis technique and setup is massively important for GP racing. It's so much about feel and, it didn't quite work out. I mean, we kind of hit it a bit unluckily as well because then the 600s were kind of the staple diet a bit because that's what Moto2 started with. Then, of course, Triumph appeared and we had 675 Triumphs and 765 Triumphs and it all got into a bit of a blur. So, a bit pissed off on that one, if I'm honest. But, I mean, Supersport NG is that's been the thing that we never thought would...
Well, that wasn't the thing at the time, was it?
No,
because
so that
was the opposite view that Supersport was
absolutely. So there'll be a bit of Supersport NG has a little bit of there's some sort of part of the BOP stuff, a bit of freedoms in the chassis side. So it's kind of a bit warped into that. But I mean, I did have a bit of a vision that the major countries should all have a British Moto2 class, and I would have seen that as being quite a natural thing of having Superbike replicating World Superbike, obviously different technical rules, but the principles are the same.
Sure.
And Moto2 being the principal prototype class in any one country, but didn't quite happen.
It worked all right in Motostar, didn't it? Because we had ex-Platinum Bay, Maverick Vignales bikes, ex-GP bikes filtered their way down. And the timing just didn't work for GP2. As you say, it was a shame. So that would have made some great racing around our circuits. Let's have a look. Thank you, Chris, for that one. Craig Lowe. Keeping away from various topics, I'd like to hear where you feel the BSB package will be in 5 years' time. You sort of put a winky face at the end of like GS's racing baggers.
No, I mean, I'm a good buddy of Wayne Rainey's. I did some stuff out in America, and we really sort of share some good ideas. And his wingman is Chuck Axland. And obviously, baggers out there, it's made for the US market. And I saw Loris Basdas got signed up for it yesterday as well, which is great. And our good friend James Rispoli is making a good living out there. But I mean, the budgets of those things whatever the leading BSB team is spending, the baggers are spending probably sort of 50% more. I mean, it is bonkers. It has a super sport level of performance. But, I think you have to understand the American culture. I mean, the rivalry between Indian and Harley Davidson, I mean, it's tribal. So it's that market that, will benefit from it. We have the kind of notionally the European rights for King of the Baggers. There's no appetite. Well, there's appetite. It's a nice idea to sort of try it. I mean, my only sort of way of thinking it could possibly happen from an exhibition side is if their series finishes in early September, that we put some bikes on a boat and they come over and we maybe do the final round and then we do a brands or something like that, which would be a thing. But, we're talking, huge cost. Ruben Zaus has just started a bit of a kind of a, not say a pirate series is the wrong word, but there's an alternative series. So it doesn't transgress our rights, but he's going to run out a few races. But Yeah, I mean, I hate this. I put it out to the manufacturers. Says, listen, we are here to provide a competition platform for bikes. Should you want to race them? So I did a concept document for the manufacturers saying, if you got like BMW of like M1000s, RRs, or what they are, and Triumph have got something. I mean, I think we identified the multi-strada and things like that. I mean, yeah. Who knows? I mean, it's going to be manufacturer driven, but just like anything, bringing new classes from concept to reality is not the work of a moment. And if you get it wrong, it's an expensive mistake.
Excellent. Thanks, Stuart. Final one. How much do you get involved, if you can share, in new riders coming into the series from other series, such as John McPhee and most recently Ilya Mihalchuk?
Yeah, I mean, Ilya was destined to come and be part of the Superstock Championship, and obviously there's been some changes in the team compositions. It's a shy away from the topic. There was an original plan. Some things changed, and now we've got the potential of. We were going to have one team with 2 riders. Now we've got 2 teams with a net of 3 riders. We're not involved in it. Riders talk to me all the time. Teams talk to me all the time. Who's out there? I'm not a rider agent. I kind of might nudge the odd conversation and strongly suggest someone talks to somebody. But I think that's the role of a promoter. I have an ambition of having the most interesting and competitive grid that I can assemble. And that needs lots of moving parts. And, riders will have ambition, teams will have ambition, and sometimes they're just a bit shy in talking to one another.
A conduit between them all.
That's the word, yeah.
Excellent. Stuart, we've run out of time. May we do this again midway through the season?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's no substitute for just telling it how it is. Sometimes the socials do get a little bit out of control, and I know how hard people will work and their passion from all levels. This weekend I've got marshals out doing their training, the medics doing their racetrack training. We've got teams are beavering away. I know the effort we're putting in. So, when some of the negativity starts swirling, this is a big team effort, and sometimes you just got to see the bigger picture.
Brilliant, Stuart. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best for the 25 season.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting down with us, ladies and gentlemen. Stuart Higgs.
A huge thank you to Stuart for his time and inviting us down to Donington Park to just put a few things right on the TNT deal and just explain how it happened. It might confirm your opinion. It might have changed your opinion. Let us know in the comments below, but keep it clean. We're only a couple of days short of the next episode with the great Keith Ewan. That's already scheduled and ready to go, so that will continue as planned with the great commentator and former Grand Prix racer himself. As always, thank you so very much for watching, and until Keith on Wednesday, look after yourself. Bye-bye.